The small coastal town of Seabrook was known for its quiet charm, fishing boats, and the occasional tourist visiting its historic lighthouse. But one morning, the town was shaken by the news of Admiral James Whittaker's sudden death. The Admiral, a retired naval officer, was a respected figure in Seabrook, known for his sharp mind and mysterious past. His death was ruled as a heart attack, but something about it didn't sit right with Detective Clara Hayes. Clara was a no-nonsense investigator with a knack for solving puzzles. She had moved to Seabrook a year ago, seeking a quieter life after years of working in the city. But when she heard about the Admiral's death, her instincts told her there was more to the story. She decided to visit the Admiral's home, a grand old house overlooking the sea, to see if she could uncover the truth. The house was dark and silent when Clara arrived. The Admiral's housekeeper, Mrs. Grayson, greeted her at the door. She was a frail woman in her 60s, with a nervous demeanor. "Thank you for coming, Detective," she said, wringing her hands. "I just don't believe it was a heart attack. The Admiral was in perfect health. And then there's the letter." "What letter?" Clara asked, her curiosity piqued. Mrs. Grayson led her to the Admiral's study, a room filled with nautical maps, old books, and a large mahogany desk. On the desk lay a single envelope addressed to the Admiral. The handwriting was elegant, but the name of the sender was smudged and unreadable. Clara carefully opened the envelope and pulled out a letter. It read, "Admiral Whittaker, the truth cannot stay buried forever. Meet me at the old lighthouse tonight at midnight. If you don't come, the consequences will be dire. A friend." Clara frowned. "Did the Admiral go to the lighthouse last night?" Mrs. Grayson nodded. "He left the house around 11:30 p.m. I thought it was strange, but he didn't say a word about where he was going. When he didn't return by morning, I called the police. They found his body near the lighthouse, slumped over a bench." Clara's mind raced. The letter was clearly a threat, but who had sent it? And what was the truth that couldn't stay buried? She decided to investigate further, starting with the Admiral's past. Over the next few days, Clara dug into the Admiral's life. She discovered that he had been involved in a controversial naval mission 20 years ago. The mission, codenamed Operation Stormbreaker, had ended in disaster, with the loss of an entire crew. The official report blamed a sudden storm, but rumors of sabotage had persisted for years. Could the Admiral's death be connected to this old mission? Clara also learned that the Admiral had been receiving anonymous letters for months before his death. Each letter contained vague threats and references to the past. Mrs. Grayson had kept them hidden, fearing they would upset the Admiral. Clara examined the letters carefully, looking for clues. One phrase stood out: "The lighthouse holds the key." Determined to find answers, Clara visited the old lighthouse that night. The structure was abandoned, its beam long extinguished. As she climbed the spiral staircase, she noticed something strange: a small, hidden compartment in the wall. Inside was a dusty journal. The journal belonged to the Admiral and contained detailed notes about Operation Stormbreaker. The final entry was particularly chilling. "I can no longer carry this burden. The truth about Stormbreaker must come out, but I fear the consequences. If anything happens to me, the evidence is hidden in the lighthouse." Clara's heart raced. She searched the lighthouse thoroughly and found a hidden safe behind a loose brick. Inside was a stack of documents that revealed the truth. The disaster had been caused by a faulty navigation system, and the Admiral had covered it up to protect the reputation of the Navy. But someone had discovered the truth and was blackmailing him. As Clara pieced together the puzzle, she realized that the Admiral's death was no accident. He had been lured to the lighthouse and killed to silence him. But who was the killer? The answer lay in the journal. The Admiral had written about a former crewmate, Lieutenant Mark Harris, who had been dishonorably discharged after the mission. Harris had always blamed the Admiral for ruining his career. Claire tracked down Harris, who was now living in a run-down apartment in the city. When she confronted him, he confessed. He'd had sent the letters, hoping to force the Admiral to reveal the truth. But when the Admiral refused, Harris had snapped and pushed him during their meeting at the lighthouse, causing him to collapse. With Harris in custody, Claire closed the case. The Admiral's last letter had led her to the truth, but it was a bittersweet victory. The secrets of the past had cost a man his life, and Clara couldn't help but wonder if the truth had been worth it. As she walked away from the lighthouse, the beam flickered to life for the first time in years, casting its light over the dark sea. It was as if the Admiral's spirit was finally at peace, knowing that the truth had been uncovered. Clara smiled faintly, knowing that justice, though delayed, had been served.